So problem identified was our area, right? We had 15 different segments that we dealt with. And this is kind of a summary of the 15. The first segment, we talked about diagnostic and solution skills, and we focused a lot on the important elements of safety, comfort, and energy as it relates to our HVAC systems. Then we talked about a virtual training strategy with today's situation that we're dealing with as far as the pandemic and other things that are going on. And guys, I don't think this is going away, just so you know, so you better start planning ahead. This may be more long-term than any of us planned, but this virtual training strategy is all about who, what, when, where, when, why, how. Why are we doing this, right? What are the things that we need to do when to make sure our people stay sharp on this? Because we are an essential business. We are still getting called out into the field to do this work. So how are you going to keep your people sharp? Right? Well, there's lots of good virtual training out there that's available. My buddy Tom Whitman is teaching the heck out of some virtual sales training. We've got technical training going on at NCI. There's technical and business training going on all over the industry. And certainly with the Goodman Business Toolbox and the Amana Brand Business Academy, there's tons of good resources that are available. Session 3, we focused on sharpening the axe. I mean, it's one of the 7 habits of highly effective people, are basically saying, hey, look, I'm going to continue to stay focused on training my people. And we got to, right? Unless you're just shutting down, which hopefully, obviously, if you're here, you're not shutting down. If you're not shutting down, if you're going to fight through this storm, then you got to have people that are sharp. You got to have people that are doing the right things at the right time. So you got to constantly be looking at how they do it and why they do it and when they do it, and make sure that you're doing the things that need to be done. At NCI in session 4, we talked about sharing the knowledge, and we talk about what we call educational sales process, ESP. And in that educational sales process, what we're doing is we're sharing knowledge that we've gained from the customer and from measuring to figure out what's going on with the HVAC system. And in this case, what we're talking about is sharing knowledge about our experiences, our traditions, and so forth, and how we tie all that stuff together. In session 5, we talked about diagnosing progress. I'll get it right in a minute. Diagnosing problems within an organization or within a customer's home. You know, doctors have been doing this virtual doctor's appointment. Why can't we do a virtual sales appointment? Why can't we do a virtual service appointment? You know, back in the day when I was running my dad's business back in the 90s, hard to believe that's been a long time ago. Don't even want to think about how many years that's been, but back then we would get people calling up and saying, hey, my furnace isn't working. Well, we taught our people on the front lines how to do some initial diagnostic work, make sure breakers aren't tripped, make sure the fan's not on instead of auto, whatever, right? We take them through some quick little diagnostic works remotely. Well, guess what? With today's technology, I can take things like this and I can actually visit the customer's home from right here at my desk. So what can I do to diagnose problems remotely? In session 6, we talked about fan airflow, and this is really a sad accountability issue for our industry. The typical HVAC system installed typically by the low bid contractor is only delivering 57% of the rated capacity of the equipment. So when Goodman Amana builds a 98% furnace, guess what? We're only getting 57% of that capacity to the home. When Goodman Amana builds an 18 SEER, 20 SEER system, we start throwing this good inverter technology in. Guess what? Only 57% is getting to the home. Why is that? Well, it's not because of the equipment. It's because of poor installation practices. So in fan airflow rules, one of the things we talked about is how important it is to measure static pressure and make sure that you understand exactly how much airflow is going across the evaporator or the heat exchanger of that particular piece of equipment. In session 7, we talked about proactive pricing strategies. There's a little analogy with the 3 little bears, right? Too hot, too cold, just right. Well, guess what? Too high, too low, just right is the strategy that we wanted to talk about there in session number 7. In session 8, we had my good friend John the man came in and talked to us about. John Ellis said, look, V is for ventilation, and HVAC, the V stands for ventilation. We want to focus on the ventilation aspects of indoor air quality and how we can make ventilation drive a whole lot of progressive approaches to solving indoor air quality issues through proper ventilation. And then session 9, John came back and he talked about the 5 critical questions that contractors need to ask. Service techs and maintenance techs specifically need to ask when they go on a sales call. And they fall into 5 categories, amazingly enough. What kind of safety issues do we have? What kind of health issues do we have? What kind of comfort issues do we have? What kind of efficiency issues do we have? And then I'm going to let you go to session 9 to figure out what the 5th question is. In session 10, we talked about not behind, pre-sold. In other words, if you have 3 weeks worth of work already booked, right? If you talk to your customer as if you are behind, what that sounds like to the consumer is what? You suck at scheduling. You suck at capacity. You suck, bottom line. You're behind, right? Well, if you're pre-sold, what does that mean? Wow, man, you're in great demand. You're a company that I ought to do business with because obviously there's a whole lot of people waiting in line to get to do business with you. I mean, you think about Disneyland or Disney World. They got long lines normally. They got long lines to get in. Why? Because their product is good. Because their product is good. In session 11, we talked about the high performance tune-up. And if you want to get blown away, think about this. What if you were doing HVAC tune-up without checking refrigerant pressures? Heresy, right? That's heresy. Well, guess what? The refrigerant system is a closed loop system. If it was charged right to begin with, you should never have to touch it again until you uninstall that piece of equipment, right? That's absolutely right. Well, a high performance tune-up helps you understand how you can check the efficiency of that system without putting gauges on it as far as refrigerant's concerned. If you do it right, you never have to put refrigerant gauges on again, ever, until it's time to replace that piece of equipment. In session 12, we're going to investigate, analyze, and quote indoor air quality issues. Investigate, analyze, and quote. My friend John Ellis came back in and pinch hit for me that week. And man, I tell you what, it's the right thing to do. If you understand what's going on with your customer, you investigate, you analyze the findings that you have, and then you quote them appropriate solutions, you can't lose. And then session 13, we talked about thriving. We interviewed 5 different NCI contractors that have been a part of this approach, the high performance HVAC approach that we teach. They've been doing this thing for a long time. We interviewed 5 of them to talk about how are they thriving in the midst of all this chaos and in the midst of all this craziness. So session 13, listen to your peers and hear what they have to say. In session 14, we talked about thinking outside the box. This is your box, right? This is your box. The question is, how do I get this thing to work properly? How do I get my box, my understanding of what's going on in the industry? How can I adjust it so that I can get the proper kinds of results? And then session 15, we tied it all together and we said, this is your box. So it looks like this, right? So this is your box. How do I get that thing, the things that I do now, how do I adjust what I'm doing now to get the results that I'm looking for in the future? So listen, guys, we appreciate the opportunity to be a part of this. NationalComfortInstitute.com, 800-633-7058. Give us a call. We'll help you grow your business.